Hey everybody, Hashinshin here. Riot is doing 3 really dumb buffs next patch, and I just figured I'd chime in and be like, wow Riot, these are really dumb buffs for next patch. How could we do this better? Now, I'm going to be focusing on Darius and Jax here. We're going to be going over these champions, and you can feel free to leave me your feedback and tell me if I'm right, or tell me if I'm wrong, or tell me if I'm crazy, or, oh, Hashinshin, the change you're doing would literally destroy the game. But here's the thing. I think this Darius and Jax buff that they're doing, they're really dumb. They're really bad for the game, and they shouldn't be doing them. I will agree, when I look at the stats, that these champions do seem to be slightly underperforming. Not crazy underperforming, but they are slightly underperforming. Now, I'll verify this. Darius and Jax, when we go to Plat Plus, Darius is 7th highest pick, 50%. Jax is 13th highest pick, 49%. When we go to Masters Plus, Jax is a 10th highest pick, 50% though, and Darius is 14th highest pick, 50%. When we go to all ranks, I'm just doing this for the sake of, you know, the future proofing this. Jax is 49%, Darius is 48%. So at the lower ranks are underperforming, at the high ranks are a little bit okay. Overall, I would agree. I do agree with you, right? They are a little bit underpowered. But why are Darius and Jax underpowered? Before I go to that, I want to say, please like, please subscribe, please leave a comment down below. If you have an opinion on this or on what I'm saying, that's fine. If you think I'm wrong, that's fine. Go to the comments, you can say it. That's great. You know what? Do it. It's fine. It increases viewer interaction. If you want to tell me I'm a fucking idiot, go ahead. Tell me I'm a fucking idiot. Now, let's say the first thing that's going to make everyone say I'm a fucking idiot. Don't buff Azir, ever. Do not ever fucking buff this champion, ever. Azir is bad for the game. Never buff him, ever. Never buff Azir. Forget about him. Throw him in the waste bin. Throw him away, be gone. Done with Azir. You never touch this champion again, ever. Azir is done. You never buff him. In fact, nerf him. Do another nerf. Decrease his health by 13 per level, like you're doing now. Just go ahead, just nerf it to 79 health per level. I don't give a shit. Nerf him harder. If Azir is viable, this game is worse. You don't need all 160 champions or whatever we're up to now to be viable. You can leave some behind. Azir, he can be left behind. There's an expression that I like to use. He's not going to be in League of Legends 2. If a champion you would not put into League of Legends 2 exists, then stop trying to force them to be viable. You make the game worse. Some champions should just remain a little underpowered just so that only the pros who play them and max them out can do okay. There are still Azir mains. He still does do okay. He does not need a buff. I promise you he doesn't need this buff. And I actually did math this out. This buff would give him the 9th highest health at level 18. That's right, the 9th highest. More than Set has. Azir. Please don't do it, Riot. But okay, let's go ahead and we're going to talk at Azir and we're going to talk on Darius and Jax. Now, I'm gonna list through these so we can work on this together. What would we say Darius's problem is? Getting kited. I think that's fair, right? Can we all agree on this one? Darius's fundamental problem isn't really the laning phase. His laning phase, you can go suck and win, door and shield. He has 10 health regen. For the most part, even if he's fighting a ranged champion, he's fine-ish. He has some issues, but we will agree, for everyone here, his issue is being kited. So what is Riot doing? Let's read the Riot's buff. This might shock some of you, because Riot has never attempted a buff like this before. They're going to buff his damage. They're going to give him more damage. Riot has never done that before. Never in the history of ever has Riot looked at a champion and been like, wow, that champion should be doing more damage. I'll be done now. I'll be done on my sarcasm. What would my buff be? My buff, less kited. Now, note what I said. I did not say not kited. I did not say remove the ability to kite him. I said make him less kited. Why? Because his problem is clearly being kited. Buffing his ult damage, and remember this, these numbers are doubled. So buffing his ult damage 50 to 150, that is a bad idea. You should not be doing that, Riot. That would be stupid. Please do not do that. In other words, let's look at the, I'm gonna write the exact problem. What is the problem with this buff? What is a fundamental issue here? He's stronger into who he's strong. He's not stronger into who he's weak. This means, oh, I need to move this a little bit over here. This means this buff doesn't actually make Darius any better into Jace, Kennen, Quinn. None of those champions he becomes stronger into, but he does become stronger into the champions that he's already good against, the champions he's already beating. That's bad, Riot. That pushes counter pick meta. Darius should not just automatically lose the game for his team because, oh, they picked Jace. Oh, okay, well, that's that then. Like, you shouldn't get to late game as Darius and just be like, oh, well, fuck it, that's that then. I can't guess we lose. So, what would I suggest? What is a better buff to be less kited, but not to monstrously buff his early game? I actually have an idea. I have a crazy idea. Make his Q much like it used to be with the phage and items like that. If his Q last hits a minion, so if his Q kills a minion, give Darius 60 movement speed for 2 seconds, or 1.5 seconds, or whatever. That means that during the laning phase, Darius can give up his Q cooldown, push the lane a little bit, and get a little bit of movement speed so he can get into range of champions like Quinn, try to maybe get away from a gank, you know, do these sorts of things so that in the mid game, if there's a minion wave, he can try to quantum like gravity boost off a minion wave to try to chase people down a little bit. He used to have this with the old phase passive, and I think he was less kiteable during them. Now remember what I'm saying, less kited, not unkiteable, not let's give Darius permanent ghost. I'm just saying let's make him less kited. I think this change would give him more gameplay to champions. Once again, Quinn, Kennen, Jace, etc. Give him 60 movement speed. If he fights a melee champion, he's not going to be able to beat that melee champion by using his Q on the minion and then going into range of them. He would lose because he would be down in ability. You wouldn't be able to just use your Q, then run it like an Aatrox and then beat them. Well, okay, Aatrox you might be able to, but not like a Wukong or anything like that. So this buff would primarily be for Darius to trade his Q cooldown for the ability to get into range. I think, remember, here's the thing. Darius is not massively underperforming. Where are you, Darius? At all ranks, Darius is a little bit weak. At Masters Plus, his pick rate is a little bit down. He does not need a massive buff. However, the buff that you should do, Riot, not just let's give him more damage, give him exactly what he needs. Less kited. Buff what makes him too weak. You can leave the fact that he will be kited, just make him less kited. Now let's look at Jax. Let's look at, I'm gonna do this. I was considering rewriting the whole thing, but then I realized it'd be a lot of work. That would be stupid. So what is Jax's problem? I'm gonna write this down here. Getting poked out by range. Now, some people might say that his problem is that he can't stat check a lot of champions. In my opinion, Jax actually does stat check a lot of champions already. His stat checkiness doesn't need to be stronger. And the buff that I'm going to suggest would actually help him in every matchup to a slight amount anyway, but my buff would be directed more so towards what he actually needs, to not enforce counterpick meta, to not push Jax to continue to be a counterpick who just gets more health and more damage and therefore stat checks better, but to actually help out his laning phase without just stat checking harder. So what is Riot's buff? What is the problem with Riot's buff? More damage. You're shocked on this one, by the way. Never before in all human history has Riot decided to buff more damage into the game. How long has it been 50 to 180, by the way? It's been there since Season 2, right? It's been 40 to 180 since Season 2, correct? Yeah? I think that's been the same thing. Wowee. And more health. So they're just straight giving him. By the way, the reason the visual quality here is a bit low, it's a smaller image. I just have it blown up so you guys can read it. So Jax is getting more base health and more W damage. Now, what is a problem with this buff? What is I should put the problem with Riot's buff up here. What is the problem with Riot's buff? Bigger stat check, more counter pick. So Jax isn't being made stronger into the champions he's weak into, and he's not being like that's it. This buff isn't really doing enough for the champions he's weak into. It's not helping him against well, you know, once again, the Jaces, the Kennens, the Quinns who are poking him down, who are winning by just draining his HP. It's not helping him into that. He's just getting more damage and more health, so he can just leap strike into champions like Gwen, Irelia, Camille, he can just leap strike into them harder. And he does lose the early game to Camille due to getting poked out. He does come back and win later, but at the very least, he does lose the laning phase. So what would my buff be? My buff would be below 65% HP, W heals 10 to 30. I'll do this one, 10 to 30 HP. That means if Jax, let me double say this just to be perfectly clear. If Jax is below 65% health, make his W, based on the rank of it, heal 10 to 30 HP. And then I'll say refund mana. Now, what does this buff do? This is actually a multi-pronged buff that does two different things. One, Jax's W will refund mana, making it easier to last hit with him, making him better at the low ranks. Shocking, I know, I'm really smart. So it'll make him better to last hit with, making him better at the low ranks, but here's the other thing. Jax's W gives him 50 range. That gives him more range, therefore more capability of last hitting, potentially away from ranged champions. What does that mean? That means he can have more safety, he doesn't have to run up as much, it makes him easier at last hitting. And what does this thing do? The W heals. This gives him a tiny heal when he's being poked out. Maybe this number could be adjusted. Maybe it could be 60, maybe it could be 50. I'll settle on 60%. This allows him to, because remember, 10 to 30 is not that much. That means if Jace auto attacks you once, you'd have to W 5 times to out heal it. But the point of this change is that Jax will be able to trade his W, his cooldown, when he's not trying to fight other champions. So here's the thing, if he is trying to fight other champions, this does give them a small window to go in and try to fight him. So there's more back and forth, there's more exchange in the lane. He's trading his W to get a little bit of HP, his opponents could potentially notice this and try to fight him. In return, Jax has more capability to last hit from range, and he has more health. So if he's getting poked by Quinn or Jace or Kennen, that he can try to keep his health up, and he can try to keep himself in the lane. Try to actually reach that outscale point and not just get devastated early and lose. Why would this change be better? This change would really not impact him that much into the champions that he's, well, realistically doing fine against. The champions that he's already pure melee, the champions that are already Camille, Aurelia, Darius, those sorts of champions who they're already melee, he doesn't really need his W to refund mana. He doesn't really need extra range to last hit. It gives him a little bit more ability. Yeah, he tends to all in and he doesn't tend to sit at half HP or below. He either kills you or he doesn't. That's just my opinion. And again, Jax doesn't need some phenomenal buff. It's not like he's massively underpowered. He's already doing pretty good at Masters Plus. He just needs his matchup into some champions to be a bit stronger. You can see against some champions like Graves, he's actually one of Graves' counters even. So it's not like this champion, it's not like Jax has no purpose in the meta. He does do fine-ish into Camille. And here's a problematic thing about Jax that we might notice. Jax gets utterly annihilated by Riven. Riven is fucking overpowered, and Riven has historically been one of Jax's hardest counter picks. So potentially, Riot, if you nerf Riven, Jax's win rate might go up to 51%, and that is something you should notice, okay? It is highly likely, and this is my opinion, if you nerf Riven, Jax will go back to being overpowered. So let's keep this in mind. When we do a buff, we should do a buff that affects his counter picks and does not affect it should primarily be aimed at affecting the champions who counter him. It should not be aimed at affecting the champions who, well, he's already good into, because he doesn't need to be better into those champions. Everybody got that? Okay, and that's basically it for this video. So, in summation, these buffs, bad. More stats checking Jax, bad. More damage Darius, bad. Azir buff ever, super bad. Don't do any of these, okay? Please. You will make my game worse. You would make top worse. This game does not need to be any worse. Do not make League of Legends a worse game. I implore you. League of Legends does not need to be a worse game, okay? Cool. That's it for this video. If you made it through all of it, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here, and thank you for everything. Special shout out to my Patreon supporters. If you could join my Patreon, the link is in the description. Joining my Patreon supports me immensely. I get the majority of those funds, and that is the best way to support me. For as little as $3, you continue to support me and these videos. For everybody else, just leave a comment. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Am I an idiot? I don't know. You will have to tell me. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Once again, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.